Our little Wolfie has finally grown up. We've been running tier 16s, tier 15s, juiced with Abyss, and I'm happy to report that our little Jacob has now grown up into a full-grown J-Wolf. If you need to unsubscribe, I understand, but let's continue. Anyway, so the build received buffs the other day. God knows why, because this thing was already super strong, but apparently enough people complained that Wolf got buffed. I'm going to go over some of the changes I made to the build up to this point, some ways that you can take it to the next level, and what I'm going to do with it next. So, going over the buffs, for some reason Lunar Blessing now fires an additional projectile and also counts as a war cry, which allows us to do some interesting stuff on the tree if we want. But the other more important thing is that its cooldown no longer pauses while it is active. What this means is that we just need to take out Second Wind, and we can replace that with another support. So we basically are getting a free support on this with similar functionality. This does mean that you need to have a decent amount of rage to get that uptime where it's lasting longer than the cooldown. But if you're following my builds, that absolutely is the case. And there's some points on the tree that increase skill effect duration that further increase the duration of this. So this is just like a huge buff. Not only are we getting that additional projectile, but we're getting a free support socket. One other thing I'm linking with Lunar Blessing is this Oasin's Oath. This allows mana leech from supported skills to recover based on elemental damage types instead of physical. This is extremely good for mana recovery. I don't know if this, I paid like 5x for it or something. It wasn't very expensive, but I mean, we'll see what it costs after this video. Probably, hopefully not a lot. That's the socket that you can replace. And then I'm using rapid attacks as well. The next skill that got upgraded was Cross Slash. This thing's shockwave is now more potent. The other thing is that Arctic Howl also received a 50% damage buff on the flat cold damage, so this is even more important to use, generally just on bosses, but more damage over there. Now let's go over some of the gear changes, because there are some really good ones. There are these gloves, Sine Aequo. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but these things they're so crazy. When I first read them, I misunderstood them. First thing is that they grant us increased skill speed, which is great. That effectively is like increased attack speed, but it has this line: immobilize enemies at 50% buildup instead of 100%. When I read this, I assumed this meant you have 50% less immobilization buildup. Freeze is a form of immobilization, and what this actually means is that instead of the monster getting completely frozen when it is at 100%, it is now at 50%. So this is effectively 100% increase or 100% more freeze buildup. So we freeze monsters twice as quickly now. These things just do not have a downside. I guess the downside is they don't have a whole lot of resistances or anything, or life. There's also a line on them: enemies immobilized by you take 20% more damage. That's not increased damage, it's more damage. So that multiplier happens at the end of all your increases and flat damage. So this is a huge amount of damage. And then starting with this Boar rune, this Boar idol, grants us gain 1 rage on melee hit and 15% increased cooldown recovery rate. Because our Lunar Blessing is a cooldown now, that gets affected by that. So that is a very nice thing to put in this, also for our Arctic Howl. Now in terms of defenses, that's probably one of the things a lot of people have been struggling with. You might see people saying like, oh, Wolf is squishy. Wolf is not squishy. People build their Wolf squishy and then they die. I really want to encourage everyone to get out of that mindset of this archetype is squishy. If you start thinking like that, you're going to stop exploring options that do exist to tank up your character. I have a video on building defenses in PoE, but Wolf is not inherently squishy. And if you see someone saying that, ignore them, because it does not have to be squishy. So the thing that does kill me currently are the shotgunning mobs in Abysses, the ones that shoot out dozens of chaos projectiles, and then occasionally the degen things from Abyss, because those things disable regen and they degen you, and you have to be in melee range. So those are the things that generally kill me. Otherwise, we've been mostly fine. But now, what have I done to solve some of these defenses? First thing is using Cloak of Flame. This has 50% of physical damage taken as fire. I got a corrupted one with 56% of physical damage taken as fire. This combined with Avatar of Evolution. This doubles our adaptation effect. We're getting adaptations every time we take elemental damage of a certain type. So if we take damage from a fire hit, we gain a fire adaptation, and we get 10% less damage taken of that elemental type, and we can have up to 3. So if we have 3 fire adaptations, because we're taking fire damage from hits, from let's say Cloak of Flame, we're taking 30% less fire damage, and then also on top of that, 10% less elemental, so 40% less fire damage taken. The next thing, however, not only has Fizz taken as fire, cold, and lightning, but adaptations have double effect, but they only last for 5 seconds. So with this, if we were to have 3 fire adaptations, we would take 60% less fire damage plus 10, which would be 70% less fire damage taken. I have noticed this up pretty consistently, but there is a side of me that wishes this adaptation duration was a little bit longer. It normally helps when you get hit consecutively, but if you're just getting like hit once and then that wears off, then you're not really going to feel it. But normally, like, you'll really feel it if I were to like get knocked down, then you really notice. Let me actually just demonstrate that. Let's just get hit by some monsters. Okay, you see there, we have gained 3 fire adaptations because we're taking Fizz damage. That Fizz is getting converted to fire, and then we gain these. So the thing you can see over here, fire damage taken 64% less, and this is with like a very small amount of armor. I'm not hitting anything. The thing that's probably killing me right now is the poison. I'm managing to almost out regen it with my flask. So that's the idea with these. The one thing to look out for though is damage as extra, let's say cold or lightning in a map, because then you're going to start getting adaptations of other types, and then they still work. The adaptations still work, but it's not as effective as the fire because we're converting so much of the Fizz as fire. So this will at least, this solves a lot for physical mitigation, as you can see here. We're managing to stand fairly still. I mean, if no one's standing still like this in a map, so that helps that. Now, there's 2 other things I want to draw your attention to. Firstly, on Shred, I am using multi-shot as a 6th link. This produces more ice crystals when hitting a frozen enemy that then explode when using cross slash. I've been testing this. This is kind of feels based, and it feels really good. So give multi-shot a try. I'm also using Cold as Human, Long Fuse, Concentrated Area, Rapid Attacks. This is all on Mobilitics. The one other thing, and this is like this is quite an expensive thing that is more endgamey, but that is getting this jewel over here from nothing. Passives in radius of X Keystone can be allocated without being connected to your tree. There's a few that are really good. This one is excellent. Chaos Inoculation allows us to allocate Heavy Frost, 20% increase freeze buildup, and hits ignore non-negative elemental resistances of frozen enemies. This is huge for our damage. However, one thing to point out is if you're using that, whether you choose, you could anoint this. I anointed this for a while. Or if you go this, just make sure to remove the chance to invert enemy resistances, because this is pointless. If a frozen enemy's resistance is 0 and you invert it, it's still 0. So take that out if you do use this. The other points here, further increase freeze buildup and increase damage against frozen enemies. Over here, we've got damage extra chaos. Here, physical damage, strength, crit damage bonus if you want it. And here, gain physical damage as extra cold against shocked enemies and fizz extra lightning against chilled enemies. Up here, invocated efficiency, 10% increased mana cost efficiency of skills. So this is just making our mana cost a little bit lower. Other people have suggested grabbing one for Resolute Technique. This allows you to allocate quite a lot of good stuff like Unbending for remove max life, Honorless, Armor if you've hit an enemy with a melee attack recently, and 50% increased melee damage against immobilized enemies. This is also another really good anoint, especially if you're going for more of an armor stacking route. Over here, I don't know if it reaches, and yeah, it should reach here, I think, but reduce slowing potency of debuffs, skill effect duration, max rage. I think it hits this. I'm not 100% sure, but there's also this. Unfortunately, these things are not cheap. So we can say Chaos Inoculation. How much does this one cost right now? I paid 14. It's down to 8. So you can look at these or maybe check out some other ones around the tree. But this is far from necessary. I guess the only other thing to mention are anoints. I'm currently back on Stimulants. Wait, I'm anointing stimulant. I am back using stimulants, which is 16% increased attack speed during any flash effect. Because we have this Levy Younger Spirits, which is always active, this is just 16% increased attack speed. Like I said, you could also instill this, Heavy Frost. You could also instill this over here, Honorless. This one's also great. Let me know in the comments. I'm sure there's plenty of other good ones. There's also down here, Crystal Elixir, 40% increased elemental damage with attack skills during any flask effect. That one's also good. There are probably plenty. But now the question is, where do we take the build to the next level? The one option is going Oracle, which is something I'm going to look at. Not 100% sure I'm going to swap over to Oracle, but it is an option. And then looking at other gear stuff, we could actually take out Cloak of Flame, go super high armor, make a new talisman. This one is great, but could be a lot better. And then just figuring out how to min-max this guy. So what I'm going to do on stream today, I'm going to update the build guide, which is a little bit out of date. And then we're going to explore some options on how to push this build to the next level. Because even though it is performing so well, there is so much room for improvement. I'm on level 19 gems in a lot of cases and 5 links. So there's that. There's just so much more damage that we can find on this. And I'm very excited to do that. So if you've been playing the Wolf, let me know. Catch me on stream because I'll be playing it, tweaking it, updating the build guide. And if you have any questions, do let me know because I'll try to answer those and also answer them in the build guide. I've been struggling to keep up with all the questions lately, but I will do my best. Don't forget to join the Discord. That's probably a better way to get answers to your questions from other people. And follow me on Twitch. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and are enjoying the build. That's going to be it. Have one today. Stay safe. Catch you in the next one and bye-bye.